Women's Network PEI is hosting a big conference this week. Actually, it's ACT BIG, which stands for Advocating Canada Towards a Basic Income Guarantee. It begins tomorrow at Holland College. And one of the keynote speakers at the event is my guest this evening. Tracy Smith-Carrier is a professor and the Canada Research Chair in Advancing the UN Sustainable Development Goals at Royal Roads University in Victoria, British Columbia. Welcome to Compass.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
What will you be discussing at your address tomorrow?
I'll be talking about the economic case for a basic income for mental health specifically for Canadians.
Okay, broaden that out a little bit. What are your keynote points there?
Well, we know the context is that mental health is on the rise. By the time Canadians reach age 40, 1 in 2 will have a mental illness. That's substantial. In the context of the uncertainties of climate change, AI, what's happening south of the border, the cost of living crisis, people are really feeling the crunch right now. And a basic income guarantee, I believe, would be a strong investment in mental health for Canadians.
Is the promise of income security enough to improve someone's mental well-being?
It is indeed. So while for the longest time I believed that a basic income was primarily a poverty reduction tool, I've changed my thinking. It actually is a broad-based population mental health strategy and intervention. And what I mean by that is that right now, the Financial Resiliency Institute, for example, has taken a poll in 2024 indicating that 75% of Canadians are experiencing financial vulnerability. So that means half of them are not sleeping at night because of their financial situation. Many of them experiencing emotional stress, and that their physical health is being impacted. So this having a basic income guarantee, whether or not they ever actually access the benefit, will have mental health benefits for them. It will provide them a buffer and a sense of security and peace of mind that they'll be taken care of if they, if they lose their job, for example.
Peace of mind is
huge for mental health.
Ontario did a pilot back in 2017. It very abruptly ended, as I understand, a year later. I know you've looked into the effect it had. What did you find?
Yes, it was surprising. We often hear that mental health prevention strategies have sort of longer term impacts. What we noticed is that had very, very short term, in relatively short order, we saw huge changes in people's mental well-being in terms of their stress, their levels of anxiety. They were able to eat better, so they were eating healthier foods. Their housing, they were able to get out of poor housing arrangements. They were able to access employment and educational opportunities. They were also, what struck me was the fact that when you're living in poverty, you can't even go for a cup of coffee with a friend. Like, that is a major big deal.
That social interaction.
Right, which we know social support networks are huge to people's mental health. So having that, being able to socialize with family and friends was a really big piece of that. So like I said, a very short period of time, and yet substantial increases and improvements in people's mental health.
And we have been talking about this and trying it in a pilot form on Prince Edward Island for some time now. And I know in February, the government's fiscal watchdog said that a guaranteed basic income, what would it at the federal level, could cut poverty rates in Canada by up to 40%.
Yes.
So all this and what you're saying makes perfect sense. What's the block to implementing it? Is there an ideological blockage there somehow?
Yeah. So some of it was related to the cost. Many people thinking it was just too expensive. And thankfully, the Parliamentary Budget Officer basically said, no, it's quite affordable. So that was one piece. But the other piece is the ideological piece. So a lot of people see people in poverty through a deservingness paradigm, assuming that it's something, they've done something wrong, right? It's their own personal deficits or behaviors that have created poverty. And what we know is that it's actually the social determinants that impact people's mental health. So what that means is the environments and the conditions that they're exposed to have a much greater impact on their mental health than their behaviors do.
I think you're right. When it comes to the cost, there is, you often hear out there, well, this is a program that costs a lot and only benefits a few. Is that true?
That's absolutely false. As I mentioned, and I think, like I said, the poverty, it is a strong poverty reduction tool, and yet it will have mental health impacts for everybody because it provides that buffer for everybody.
But also economic impacts for the broader community,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. So we're talking about improvements to people's sense of well-being, their self-efficacy, their ability to form and maintain strong, healthy relationships. At the workplace level, we're talking about improvements to absenteeism and presenteeism, so people coming to work but not really being able to fully engage, perform, and do their jobs. So improvements to employment, productivity levels will go up. We're talking about the direct costs, but we're also talking about those indirect costs, which are huge, really hard to measure because how to disentangle them from other factors can be quite tricky, but we know they're substantial.
And it could work here on PEI, you
Oh,
think?
absolutely. Yeah. I think that PEI would be a great place to enroll it, and not as a pilot. Personally, I believe it should be a demonstration project to demonstrate how to effectively roll it out. Not because we necessarily need the more research on the efficacy of it. This is something, cash transfers have been tried all over the world. We know they're effective. We really just need to roll it out at this point.
Well, I feel like we just gave everyone a bit of a sneak peek for your address tomorrow, but I appreciate that. Thanks so much for being our guest.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.